So thank you so much for the huge interest in what Microsoft is doing in cybersecurity and in Copilot, so Gen AI. My name is Nico Sienert. I'm the security lead at Microsoft, and I'm not alone. Jeroen.
Yeah, my name is Jeroen van der Leur. I'm technical innovation lead and senior expert within Enviso, and we are closely working together with Microsoft on these services and solutions.
Yeah, so Enviso is one of our system integrators. We have a bunch of them. So Jeroen, he's doing the sexy stuff. You have nice demos with you. I do the more or less the intro. So as you all are security specialists, typically in a cybersecurity presentation, you see then a number of numbers and spectacular percentages to explain you what the situation is out there. I'm not going to bother you with that because you all guys know how bad the situation is out there. But maybe I want to share with you one number, because when I saw that number for the first time internally, I'm also daily in cybersecurity, of course, I was also quite shocked, and it realized again how big the cybercrime problem is. And the number is, if the clicker works, here we go, 8 trillion. So 8 trillion is a worldwide cost of cybersecurity today. Now, if you take the assumption that cybercrime would be a nation, it would be the third nation in the world from a GDP perspective, after China and after US. So that was quite an eye-opener for me. And even more, they would be the fastest grower with 50% year over year. So it's clear something is going on. It's clear that we have to do something. We as vendors, but also organizations, we have to change our approach. And what is more or less the complexity? I know I have to go over there. Here we go. So organizations struggle today, and the main reason that they struggle is complexity, right? Complexity slows you down. It's not for nothing that our subtitle is defense at machine speed. And so with Gen AI, we want to accelerate that speed. And why? Why are organizations struggling with complexity? Well, they have a bunch of tool sets, so end-to-end security makes the story complex, and so they are slowing down. Also, you see a lot of complex attacks. We see nation-state attacks with a lot of money, with a lot of intelligence behind. So also that is quite complex to deal with. And on the other hand, we also see that organizations are struggling with their digital footprint. So that digital footprint is quite complex. You can only protect what you know. So also there, that complexity really is a struggle. And then, of course, people, find good skills. And also our brains are limited. We cannot process, of course, thousands of signals a day. So it's clear we need to go for a paradigm shift, and the good news is that Gen AI will help us there. So Gen AI will help us to bring our posture to the highest level, to rethink our detection and response, and to make sure that our security people on the floor are more productive. And the good news is about Gen AI, we go lightning fast. This is a bit odd all the time. So if we were looking back, so last year, this was our vision on Gen AI. So this was our plan. Within 3 years, we are there. If you look back now, today, this is where we are. So thanks to OpenAI and the use of their large language models, I will explain you a bit in a second, we can make a huge acceleration, and this is the result. And so this is something that we can applaud, and also you as organizations and the industry will like this approach. Now, if Microsoft talks about generative AI solutions, we branded it as the Copilot. And so you will see Copilots everywhere. We have it in Windows, in M365, we have it even in Minecraft, and we have also a Copilot for security, as you can see. So you really have to see it as your digital assistant next to you. So it's not an autopilot. We didn't make an autopilot out of it. You are still in the driver's seat. You are the pilot, but you have an assistant next to you that can help you to dive into your organization. And the beauty about it is you can ask it in natural language, and we will show you later on. So the product is GA since 1st of April, and maybe a small anecdote there. This is the first time at Microsoft we do an early adoption program where customers needed to pay. So when I saw that for the first time in the internal memo, I was really wondering, okay, how will the market now actually gonna react on that? Because typically you pay for testing beta software, right? So we had 400 slots worldwide. Within 2 weeks, everything was taken. So just to give you an idea how organizations are eager to learn and to understand how Gen AI can help them with their cybersecurity struggle. Now, so here you can see the high-level architecture of Copilot. So as I said, we have a close relation, of course, with OpenAI. You know the guys from ChatGPT. So we have a clear strategy with them. We invest in them a lot. But on the other hand, it's AI and machine learning is of course not new to Microsoft. So we were doing that already for a while, which is then actually a better together story. So of course we can fall back on our hyperscale infrastructure. We are the biggest public cloud provider in the world. We have our own large language models and we have our big security graph. And so in that graph, we inject every day 75 trillion of signals, and all our products are talking with us. So that's the way that they receive their real-life threat intel. And then, of course, our integrated platform. Now, talking about that platform, Microsoft is a strong believer of a platform approach for the simple reason, again, to reduce complexity, what I told you in the beginning. But that platform is open. Security is a team sport. Microsoft cannot do everything. We don't have on-premise firewalls, for instance. We don't have on-premise network security, but you guys have. And at the same time, you want to consolidate. So it's super important that that platform is open. And Microsoft, and that's what we're typically proud on, we have basically the biggest partner ecosystem around the platform. So if you have whatever security vendor, there's a big chance that they will integrate with their solutions in our platform. So that's super crucial in our vision. Now, why do I pause a bit on that open platform story? Because we have the same vision with Copilot, of course. So here you can see how we will design Copilot. So of course, we will integrate with our own security stack. So you see here Defender, Entra, Intune, what have you. But we also have a clear roadmap with other vendors. So today we have a bunch of plugins already in preview. We have already some GA, like ServiceNow and Splunk, to give you an idea. And we have also an SDK to make your customized plugins. And that's also something that Jeroen will show you later on. So again, that open characteristic is super crucial in our strategy. Now, what is the experience? So we have two consoles. So we have the standalone one, which is basically the single pane of glass. So there you have the interface with all the plugins that you have installed that connect to all your infrastructure that you have. So that's your helicopter view, if you like. But we also want that the Copilot is following you wherever you are. And we can do that the best, of course, in our own platform. So if you're here in a blade of Purview, this one, or a blade of Entra, or a blade of Defender, you will also see the Copilot on the right. So we can immediately start to ask questions directly in the console. So that's basically the choice you have as a user. So this is the experience. Again, Jeroen will show you more, but this is the idea. Just, you don't need to be a query specialist, a custom query specialist. Just in natural language, you start to ask your questions. We support 25 languages. French and Dutch is part of it. Now, maybe also something on pricing, because also that's a question we often get, of course. This is a consumption model. Simply said, the more questions, the more, we also call it prompts, you ask, the more you pay. So that's basically how it works. Now, how do we construct pricing? It all depends on how complex your question is. In other words, how many machine power we need at the back end to construct an answer. And based on that, your consumption will start to tick. And that's, of course, in a dashboard, you can monitor everything, how these things are going. But that's high level, the idea. Okay? If you want to learn more, just come to our booth. I will give you a little bit more details on that. So with that, Jeroen, yeah, the floor is yours.
Thank you
for showing some stuff.
Thank you very much, Nico. So, Copilot for Security and Viso. What are we doing with it? Now, curious to see how many people are these days. We are social creatures, so we want to socialize. How many of you are already socializing with a chatbot like ChatGPT, for example, or like OpenAI? Nobody? Okay, so a couple of you. I think indeed there are a lot of people these days that have a new best friend, which is typically a chatbot. Now, in this case, Copilot for Security, it's something else. It's not really a chatbot there. And we at Enviso, I just want to explain and elaborate a little bit on how we are using Copilot for Security within our organization. I hope for the people in front, I have sufficient data with me, so normally that shouldn't be the issue. So, click again. So, who are we, Enviso? Well, we are actually a pure cybersecurity services firm. We have over 270 employees, experts that are working in cybersecurity, and that's also our single thing. So we are really focused on security services there. Founded in 2013 in Belgium, Nowadays, we are actually more a European company. But the main interesting part, next time we need to do it with a timer. Okay, so how are we using or how are we embedding Copilot in our security services? Well, first of all, posture management and threat intel. We have our own threat intel team. They provide reports, they provide findings, they analyze certain things. We have, maybe you know him, Didier Stevens, he's a malware analyst. He also describes a lot of reports and findings on malware. So based on that, we have our own documentation. Now, it's definitely a good idea that we can also, so our security analysts, like the Sherlock Holmes within our company, that they can also consult that information. Now, in this case, for posture management and threat intel, typically we scan our entire knowledge base, and based on that, we can provide output also within Copilot for security. So if an analyst finds a certain threat, well, it can immediately already look into those reports and see if there are any matches and give additional information. Same with posture management. It can immediately also link towards Azure and check how compliant are your devices and what are some of the key recommendations you can do on a specific system or on a specific service. Another use case, that's manage, detect, and respond. So for our SOC analysts, we also are using Copilot for security. We embedded it into our service, meaning there are Sherlock Holmes, if they want to crack the case, they all have their own Watson, so Copilot that is working together with them to actually investigate certain incidents. And then last but not least, I'm also part of that team, so Enviso Labs. We are continuously looking into improving our prompts, like Nico already mentioned. Like the computing power, it's definitely, or your consumption model, it's definitely something you want to have a look at. And improving your prompts will actually help you in getting more consistent results, better results, but also lowering down maybe some of those costs. And on another hand, we are also looking into how we can use it for even more complex or more challenging use cases, which we will have as a demonstration in the end. So how does it look like, or how did we integrate Copilot within our environment? Yes, there we are. So this is a typical standard slide, the data flow within Copilot for security. So as you can see, it's indeed, like Nico already mentioned, a single pane of glass where you connect different sources or plugins, like we define them. And I'm not going to explain the entire data flow here because we don't have that amount of time, but feel free to come to our booth and we can definitely discuss this. But what is important is that we are also created our own customized plugins related to the Nitro platform. Now, the Nitro platform is something we built. It's a project over already 6 years. It was very focused on automation and orchestration, so building really like a tool set together. And that Nitro platform is now connected towards Copilot, so Microsoft Security Copilot here. What is it doing? Well, it's actually retrieving information like context for resources, also like how are we delivering incident report templates, take down messages, so it can use all that information actually within the prompt book to get you an expected result. Now, before you integrate Copilot for security within your environment, also on our side, and we were one of those companies that had to pay maybe for the beta, but we were glad to do it because it's indeed a very interesting evolvement in AI. So before you start implementing it, well, it's perhaps a good idea to think a little bit about setting those guardrails, which is actually a little bit explained on the next slide. So these are some common guardrails that we defined for us that needed to be a requirement for embedding Copilot within our environment. What was one of those guardrails? Well, unified security approach. What does that mean? Well, we already developed like 5 years on that Nitro platform. We have a lot of different tools, a lot of different security services embedded within that platform. We needed to reuse that and we needed to integrate that. Also use the product for actually what it's best to do. So there, from that perspective, if you are asking open questions, you can do it to Copilot, but there will be a lot of calculations, and maybe that's not the most interesting use case. So a unified security approach is really we integrated it into our existing tool set and actually developed that plugin to embed Copilot for security within our services. Another important one is standardized operations. Because AI can give different results, you want to have like a standard operation, which you can develop with, for example, prompt books. So in a certain manner, you want to have a structured flow so you get consistent results. Of course, your analyst can add some information to it or can ask some additional questions. But for us, it was very crucial that our results initially were very consistent. So that's also why we really wanted to integrate our standard operation procedures into Copilot for security. And then last but not least, we have a dedicated team of detection engineers and AI engineers working on this. We are using feedback from our analysts to improve it continuously, and also, I think that's a very important one, you want to have some loop, some feedback loop implemented to actually improve those prompt books and to further fine-tune also Copilot for security. Because it's very easy to enable. You just activate it and it's enabled. But if you really want to have the best results, you want to set those guardrails and you also want to improve it over time. So that's a little bit related to setting your guardrails. Now let's have a look at what are some of the major components. As Nico already explained, Copilot is working with user prompts. This is an example of a prompt book. It's a default one, so you also get default, thank you Microsoft, you get default prompt books within Copilot. So this is just a structured flow of prompts and the input and the output. So here you see an input field that your incident ID is, and then you have a structured flow of prompts that is actually executed and run, and those combined prompts will generate a result. Another important component is sources. These are the plugins and files, for example, so you can upload files, but you can also develop your own plugins. And here you see it, we developed our own plugin here, the Nitro platform. So typically you just upload a YAML file or a JSON file, and based on that, you set the authentication, and then it actually knows what to do. So who's ready to see it a little bit more in action? I think that's the interesting part. So let's first have a look at the basic prompt book we developed. So we developed a phishing prompt book. We actually started with the basis that was already there, and then we customized it a little bit. So we had the standard procedure for actually analyzing phishing mails. So here you see an example of your prompt book library. So there, all your prompt books are there, the default ones, but you can also create your own ones, and you can also create your prompt books for your company. So in this case, we have a phishing prompt book with 8 steps, and it expects one input, which is the email headers. So here you can edit even your prompt book, you can fine-tune it more. So it's really the natural language. We are asking questions, directed questions, to Copilot to analyze certain things. So how can we run a prompt book? Well, pretty easy. You just look for that prompt book, and it will show a new window. And there you have your standardized prompt book. Then, of course, we need some email headers. So this was a phishing email sent to me. I think it was even this week. So I want to know what's in that email. So imagine an analyst is also doing this, but then more in a manual perspective. In this case, we are just copy-pasting the raw email headers, and then it's going to run. As you can see here, it's running. So that's a bunch of text related to the email headers, and there you see all the prompts that are running and waiting on the output of the previous step. After a couple of minutes, you get the results, And there you see, for example, those are technical indicators being found within the email headers and within that email. We also have an integration, a plugin with VirusTotal, and you can see here immediately, well, that file, it's actually being discovered by a lot of engines as malicious. So that's definitely a potential indicator that it's a real phishing email. And you also get additional results related to the threats. So it's really combining all those tool sets together and showing you, okay, what is now going on in a manner that a typical analyst would take, for example, 1 hour, and here it's actually in a couple of minutes, and you have all that additional information. Even hunting for additional evidences, well, it generates KQL queries, so you can hunt them, and you get your nice summarization over here that you can send actually via mail or within a Teams message, depending on how you want to do your automation flow. Now, this is really like a manual process. In that case, our analyst is manually starting up the prompt book. How can you automate this? Well, for example, if you get an incident on your scene, you can automate it with logic apps. You see it on the left side there. So Copilot also has an integration with logic apps where you can then develop your prompts. So let's have a look how this works. So in this case, we have a Sentinel theme. Now, again, this is not our production environment, so those alerts are, how do you say it? Those are tests and emulations. So you see we have a logic app related to hunting for IOCs, and there it's just a basic logic app stating this is the prompt, and we are including those dynamic variables from that incident. So you see there those blue thingies, actually they present the following data, which is a huge set of data related to that incident. Based on that incident, we can then say, okay, give me an overview on what's happening. So here you see what's going on there. It really gives you a summarization of the host, the IP, files that are associated, accounts that are associated, so which is really readable from an analyst perspective. And if you want to further hunt, for example, for additional threats, well, you can see for that specific user, how can I actually find other alerts or evidences on what is going on there? And you can really look at the blast radius for that specific incident. So within Copilot, you not only have like a nice overview, you don't only get like a nice summary, but you can also work together with other tools to really request additional information and really look at the blast radius of your incident. Now, I actually changed the title slides. So my normal title slide was automation on steroids, but due to my appearance, I thought that's not a good idea. So it's actually automation to the next level. So anybody knows purple teaming? Anybody ever heard of purple teaming? Okay, a couple of you. So purple teaming really means like you have red teaming and blue teaming, so offensive activities and defensive activities combined. So what is our purpose with the always-on purple team? That we can do it in a continuous manner. Imagine you have a question from your security manager stating, there's a new threat for our company. How well are we protected? Well, in theory, we are protected via this, via this, via this. Now with purple teaming, and if you can emulate adversaries, you are able to test this. And in this case, we actually developed like a proof of concept on how to do it within the Microsoft stack and with AI integrated. So basically, for our junior analysts here, we are using a Teams channel, so they can just actually question Teams, and Teams is going to invoke the necessary automations to run a certain attack, and then also monitor on the other side. So you see there's an emulation logic app, it will run a certain attack, and then also there's a detection logic app, which will monitor your detections. Now, it's maybe better to see it in action. So how is it being constructed? Yes, oh, there it is. So this is actually the Teams channel. There you get a message like, look, it's time for your adversary emulation campaign. Do you want to emulate something? Now, I actually needed to use a chatbot that maybe was a little bit faster to type in. So this is me manually typing in like, okay, can you emulate ATP 28, which is a known ATP. What it's now going to do, it's not going to question Copilot, it's actually going to question Azure OpenAI, because this is an open question. I want to have additional information on this. So based on that, Azure OpenAI is now retrieving certain parameters, retrieving certain techniques, and it will give me a list of techniques that are included within that ATP. So as you can see, immediately, this is Caldera. Caldera is an adversary emulation tool. The entire campaign is technically created via REST APIs. So this is pre-built by an automation script. And then we, of course, want to run it. And there we see that certain attacks are successful, other ones are failed, and we see that it's running there. So this is really like an adversary, emulating that adversary, emulating all those attacks that are being used by that threat actor. On the detection side, we see in Sentinel also a link towards the techniques. What is being executed there, which incidents, which detection mechanisms were available. And based on that, we actually can match them. So Copilot is matching those two values and stating, we detected these techniques, and for other techniques, you are unprotected. And if we actually go to the Copilot output, which is the next screen, normally if you go to the Copilot output, then you will see that there the prompt was automatically generated, and that you have like the overview that we showed already in the Teams channel, but that you also have, for example, queries that for the techniques that weren't detected, that you can actually build queries to detect those techniques if you have those events available. And that should be on the last prompt output. So there it is, that's the query that you then want to add towards your scene. So I think, Nico, with that being said, back to you.
To conclude, I had some numbers with me from that early adoption program that I mentioned you before. So you can see that defense at machine speed, remember. So you see that customers are indeed confirming that they are much faster in analyzing scripts, in creating scripts, and summarizing incidents. So that's really what we want to achieve. Also, if you ask the SOC engineers, okay, was your work more from a qualitative level, let's say? They all confirm yes, 93% you can see. Also, would you use Copilot again next time for these similar tasks? Of course, yes. And are you more productive? Also there, the answer was yes. So this is really what we want to achieve. Now, to conclude, I want to do this with the quote of our Microsoft Worldwide CISO, and I think he's really right. So the success of security teams will really be measured on how you adopt GenAI. Will it beat Microsoft in the end? That's your choice. Will you combine Microsoft with other GenAI solutions? Again, I think that will be the exercise that you have to make, but it will be in the direction of GenAI if you ask me. Just know that for Microsoft it's a top priority, and maybe you don't realize it all the time, but we are already today the biggest security vendor in the world from a market share and a revenue perspective. So we want to stay there on the edge. We want to push ourselves all the time to be there, to be the best of the best, and again, to have these good partnerships with other security vendors, as I mentioned before. So with that, I want to thank you. Jeroen, thank you for joining me. So if you want to learn more on Copilot or on other technologies that we have, like Defender, Purview, whatever, just come to our booth, and very happy to have a discussion with you. Thank you very much for your interest.
Thank you very much.